We store fuel for tractors and equipment and generators here at the homestead in various containers. Typically 55-gallon drums, the high-density polyethylene drums, and of course 15-gallon drums to make them easier to move around. But we decided to get something a little bit bigger since we've kind of outgrown our storage capacity, and bought this used 400-gallon steel tank with a nice transfer pump on it. So we put a coat of paint on it in spite of it being cold. And since it's more of a ground type tank instead of the old farm tanks that were up on tall stands so you can gravity feed it, does have a gravity feed on the front bottom there that I'm going to put a filter on, and in addition to the pump and filter that's on there now that runs off 120 volts. I've decided to make a skid that so it's not where I don't want it eventually, that I can transport it onto a skid of some sort. And this is the basic arrangement I've come up with to raise it off the ground high enough so that the gravity feed can feed a 5-gallon fuel container, or we can pump it off the top when we're filling the tank on the truck or the tractor or the backhoe or whatever. So I've come up with this idea here with 4x4s, and so just to give you an idea of how it's going to come together, I'll go ahead and do a follow-up video and show you how this is all going to get bolted. But we're going to make sure that it's going to be tough enough to withstand pulling a 400-gallon fuel tank around with a backhoe. I'm going to put some eye bolts here and here on both sides of the skid on both ends. This is a little shorter right here, so we can go ahead and put where the tank's going to sit and kind of overhang, we can put a fuel container or whatever here to drain off fuel from the bottom. But yeah, it should work out well because we've done this sort of thing before with skids, so that we can move things from place to place, so it works out well. Well, another cold wet day in the Ozarks. Got the fuel tank skid finally completed. It's all bolted together. Got the eye bolts to pull this skid around with some chains behind the golf cart or the truck, if it's dependent, or the tractor or backhoe, depending upon if it's empty or how full it is. These supports came with the tank, so they work well on there. I've got them centered so they'll work around the tank properly. I've got to drill some holes here on the end to have straps that will go around the entire tank and secure on the other side. I'm going to put ratcheting straps temporarily till I can get something, some T-bolts in, some galvanized steel strapping to go ahead and permanently secure the tank to the brace itself. I put a backbone in here in case there's any deflection in the center of the tank based upon how these are spread out, and so it's slightly higher than the brace point itself. But there's going to be a 1/4-inch rubber liner to prevent metal-to-metal contact and rust and any other issues. But stepping back, she looks pretty good. Let me show you the other side. Here's the side view. Had a couple of old 4x4 pressure treated posts that I was using for pole barns. They're extra. I had them in a lay down, so they worked out good. Had a little bit of a twist in it, but worked out well by the time I bolted all this stuff up. Stuff like this, because this skid's going to sit on the ground, I had a countersink and make sure that the nut and washers were up in there and they were stable, and I went ahead and put PL adhesive at the joints and the seams, and also to cover the holes on the bottom. I didn't bother countersinking and prepping this stuff because it's all exposed. But yeah, overall it worked out good. So next thing we'll do is get the back of the trailer off, set it on the ground, and slide this tank on it and get it set, strapped down. And we'll give you a look at that, and then I'll go ahead and probably pull the plug on the bottom, get the gravity filter set up on the low end outlet on the other side of this thing, and we'll get this thing cleaned out, flushed out, and filled up with fuel. It's looking to be about $1.60 a gallon, and I love that because I know sooner or later it's going to go up. So this is just a plus for us out here. Well, there it is.
dark storm clouds were
Sitting on the backbone, nice. Sitting on the rubber liners. Set perfectly. I'm going to pull that plug there and run a piece of CPVC with a 90 pointing down on a vacuum cleaner and plot any sort of, because it was empty and it was a very fine lining of dust and rust on the inside, so I want to take out any particulate matter that might be in there before I fill it up with the fuel reserves that we do have. Yeah, it looks just good. So this part of our little project is done, and we've got a mobile 400 gallon fuel reserve. And then eventually, like I said, I'm going to go ahead and take galvanized straps and T-bolts and secure it on the bottom here. But for right now, that holds it just fine. So we're in pretty good shape. All right. Well, just got finished putting the lower gravity drain filter outlet on this fuel tank, and it came out with a 1-inch outlet. When you went ahead and used the 1-inch gate valve, since the filter housing is 1 inch and pushed it down to 3/4 inch, put another valve there. Don't ever forget to isolate any devices between a particular supply or source from any other downstream devices so you can service them. That's why I went ahead and put the 1-inch there. And that's just at the height of a typical 5-gallon jerry can, so everything's been tightened on there with the exception of that nipple on the very end. I may just go ahead and trim the threads off there just to have a little directional flow past that 45-degree elbow into any sort of vessel or jerry can. But the thing worked out real good. One thing I do like to do, especially in underground applications, is all the threads are doped all the way out. So it just helps putting a little bit extra dope, not only on the threads that are engaging other threads, but anything exposed to the weather. I did the same thing on all underground applications like we did on that utility hydrant back a couple of months ago. So this part of the project is complete. We don't have it in position yet. It's still sitting out here in the front yard. What I'm going to do next is probably get a new filter housing. This one is kind of chemically burnt. I want to see what the level is if we're going to use the pump, and I need to rejuvenate this pump here. You can see that it's dark, so I've got my headlamp illuminating everything, but it's a fill right, 13 GPM standard duty. It's still a pretty decent pump. I want to go ahead and also replace all the galvanized fittings, put new stuff on there, and inspect this hose, make sure it's still in good shape, rejuvenate that nozzle, make sure everything's working right. And it was hardwired. You can see the solid copper electrical line that I disconnected over there. I'm going to go ahead and put probably a 20-foot 12 gauge extension cord and put some sort of hanger that it can hang off the end here, so that when I do want to fill up vehicles, tractors, backhoes, that sort of thing, you know, we could just go ahead and either plug it into I got to check the amp rating on there and maybe get a matching power inverter for the vehicle, or you know, have it close enough so I can just plug it into a Jenny and run it that way. But in the event of you know, power failure or whatever, we can go ahead and get it off the bottom here. One thing I did mention previously is that I went ahead and cleaned out all the particulate matter, all the rust and other sediments, dry sediments that were up inside this tank. And so how I did that was, I mentioned I would do it with a 1/2-inch piece of CPVC. I went ahead and took a 90 and I glued it on the end. You don't want to lose this thing up inside there because it may be kind of tough getting it out. But obviously you can see that I went ahead and cut it flush with the run of the pipe, so that as I'm in there I can vacuum it flush against the bottom, and it's just easier also to get inside that one fitting, that 1-inch fitting. A 3/4 probably wouldn't have worked because it's just too big. And what I did was also I marked the very top of it with the magic marker, so I know where the top of it is, because of course, you know, if you don't know where the orientation of your fitting is, it does no good if it's sticking up in the air and you think you're actually getting something out of it. So make sure that you know how it's oriented. But it's a quick, easy fix. It's cheap. It gets in there, reached all the way to the end. I mean, it was about 6 foot long, attached to the back of a vacuum cleaner. It sucked it all out a couple of runs, and I was fairly satisfied. It was about as clean as it was going to get. So I just want to give you that tip also.